Self-expression is at the heart of the artistic journey. For budding filmmakers, the short film competition at the Real Pride Film Festival is a chance to explore themselves, try something new, and connect with fellow creatives. Not to Be, Better Late Than Never, and Caller ID are just three of the incredible short films showcased at this year's festival. Let's get into it.
Thank you for having me today. Hi, I'm Matthew Shoup. I'm a Métis Canadian filmmaker from here in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and the film that I've submitted to the Real Pride Film Festival that's playing on September 25th is called Not to Be.
What is your background in film? You know, looking at your bio says you're an emerging filmmaker. So were you in school before working on this project?
Currently, I'm in my second year at the film program at the University of Winnipeg, and I've been doing filmmaking since I was around 12.
So it's something you've always been passionate about then?
About 4 years ago, almost to the day, would be when I had my first film play at Real Pride. And that was my very first film festival I ever had. So this festival has a really special place in my heart.
Of course. So kind of your second project being featured at Real Pride, how are you feeling, from that first one? What sort of things did you learn, creating this piece?
Well, I've learned a lot. I've grown a lot since then. And this is actually my fourth project that's playing at Real Pride.
I've had fourth. Wow.
Yeah, I've had one every year since that first year that I had there. So it's when I say this festival is really special to me, I really mean it. It's every year I've always learned, and especially from watching the other films at the festival, the other incredible films that I always play alongside. I always take so much inspiration from them and try to, just improve what I'm doing just by seeing everything, all the other wonderful art.
That's the fun thing about short films, right? You have that flexibility to try something completely new, like going through a variety of different film festivals here in Manitoba, like the Gimli International Film Festival, Fascination Film Festival, and of course, Real Pride. You get to see those short films and see kind of the creativity in there because, you don't have too much time. So you're like, okay, what can I do in that amount of time? And because, it's less involved than a feature film, you have more opportunities to take chances, I think.
Yeah, definitely. There's so much more room for experimentation and risk taking. Just because you have such a smaller amount of time to do something, you can take more time to experiment and figure things out. And definitely that little bit of a time crunch has always helped me getting something. It's really forced me to think quickly and think, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? What do I want to do?
As a student, and you've released 4 different films into this film festival, where do you find the time to do that? Because being a student in itself is a pretty full-time job.
Yeah, I always find my time, whether it be evenings or weekends or in between classes at school. I'll be writing scripts. I'll be planning with scheduling, like, okay, can we shoot this then? Can we shoot this then? All of my free time really goes into filmmaking, between school and then work. And then it's just, you got to find the time somewhere, but it's really what I love to do. So it never feels like grading. It doesn't feel like it's taking a toll on me. I don't mind giving up my free time to do all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's something you're passionate about. If it was something that you're felt obligated to do, that's a completely different story than when you're investing your time.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's the cool thing. You're spending evenings, you're finding these moments in between classes to create this piece of art. And I think that's an inspiration for anyone who's interested or curious in pursuing film or some of the other arts. It's just find an opportunity, try something. You never know what's going to spark your interest or what sort of thing you can create.
Yeah, that's very true. You never know. Just always make something, create something, and then just send it out to all these different places. You never know where it's going to go. I've had films play at places I never thought they would ever play at, but it's just because I took a chance and I was like, oh, I'll see. You never know. Worst you're going to get is a no. And then you just move on and you try again next year or whatever. But creativity and making things all the time, it's just the best. It's just the best way, for me at least, to have that outlet of just making stuff. And then you never know what happens with it. Sometimes it does nothing and nobody ever ends up seeing it. but sometimes you get it playing around the world, and that's really cool.
So, not to be, what can you tell me about this project? And of course, we don't want to say too much. The festival's coming up. What sort of teaser can you give people about what they can expect when they're heading into the short films showing of the Real Pride Film Festival?
Well, I'm really excited to see all of the other films at the shorts competition this year. I've seen a little bit of some details about them, and it all seems like it's all going to be a really great program that they put together this year. It's a little hard to not give too much away,
Of
but
course.
yeah, but it's definitely a talking piece. Like it's a lot of conversation and dialogue was really like the focal point of this film, and it's probably the most dialogue heavy film I've ever done. So it was a
Mhm.
bit of a challenge this time, just trying to do that. But it follows our main character. Her name's Rowan, and she is in a bit of a tricky situation with her best friend. They shared this kind of intimate moment while they were rehearsing a scene for Romeo and Juliet for a class project. And she's not really sure if it meant anything or not. And she doesn't want to ruin the friendship, but she also likes her. So she's trying to figure out how to navigate that. And so she has a few conversations with a few different friends and gets some different perspectives about how to go forwards from there. Yeah, and that's all I.
What a classic queer predicament.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
You've mentioned that, watching the other films help you craft your next piece and you're continually learning. When you're creating projects like the short films or maybe future endeavors where you work on a feature film or things, what inspires you to create art?
I'm constantly inspired by the art that's around me. I'm constantly inspired by queer filmmakers and indigenous filmmakers, especially here locally. There's so much talent here, and I'm always inspired by any time I go to a local screening and see all of the wonderful art that's coming out of Winnipeg. And I really love putting an emphasis on Winnipeg and Manitoba in my art, um, specifically just because I think we live in a really special place, and I think that we need to show it off a bit more. There's a lot of stories here. We have a long history here. Like there's a lot of stories to tell, and I think it's important to tell these kinds of stories and just showcase.
Yeah, I completely agree. Every time I connect with someone or find us like, wait, that was made locally, like it is so exciting to see where the arts are in Manitoba because you wouldn't necessarily expect it. Everyone kind of like underestimates Manitoba, but there's so much potential here. It just needs that opportunity to grow and bloom. And you touched on a few things, telling the stories or telling queer stories, telling indigenous stories. From your perspective and from your opinion, why is it important to showcase those types of stories?
I think it's important because they're hugely underrepresented, but that is becoming a lot better. Like it's growing so much. We're getting a lot more of these stories. But I guess personally, why for me, it was actually, I guess, on a personal story, is the first Real Pride festival when I submitted my film that actually encouraged me to come out because before I hadn't. And but I decided to make that film and I was like, okay, I guess this is the way I'm coming out. I'm gonna be like, all right, I'll be at Real Pride and I'll, come out. And so that to me was important and helped me then feel free to then explore these themes of identity and queerness in my films. And I think there might be people with similar stories like that. And self-expression is something that's very important, especially in art. Artists are very self-expressive people, and so to be able to have the freedom to tell their stories, even if it might not be what's mainstream, I think that's hugely important. That there is space to tell those stories, and places like Real Pride are incredible for giving space to these artists to tell their stories.
Having conversations with my friends around a fire. They've been watching a lot of films where, they're exploring identity or a diversity. And, in a moment, a character was asking, like, hey, am I wrong? Am I different? Well, like, what's wrong? Like, is there something wrong with me? But, someone reassuring them is like, no, you're not different. You're not wrong. You're not broken. Who you are and who you are is beautiful. And I think these sorts of messages are so important for kids as they grow up. And things have come a long way in terms of queer representation, but there's still a lot of work to be done as we're, seeing some of the political messaging out there. So the more we can put those stories out there, the more we can get people to feel excited about themselves and about diverse communities, just the better, in my opinion.
I completely agree.
Now that you're created this film and it's going to be coming out soon, what's kind of next for you? Of course, like going to school, finishing school, but what are some of your like larger or future aspirations?
Well, right now, actually, I'm in the middle of working on a web series. It's an LGBTQ web series. It's called In the Cards, and you can find it on YouTube. Right now, we have 2 episodes out. The first episode actually premiered at the Real Pride Film Festival last year.
Oh, so exciting.
Yeah, and it went really well. And now we're working on the next 4 episodes, and that'll wrap up the series. And we're starting shooting right now, and it's really exciting. We're really excited to see where it goes, and it's really exciting to have a bunch of queer talent, in front of and behind the camera in this series.
Yeah, so my name is Andy Brown, and my film is called Better Late Than Never. And I'm super excited. It's my first film that I've ever made. And it's, basically a glimpse into my life from a late transitioner's perspective, which you don't always see in the media. I feel like that's maybe my niche to fill. I don't know at this point, but
well, I think that's so exciting that story of better late than never. There's never a time where it's too late to take those steps to explore oneself. For my friend group, lots of us are queer. Some of us are transitioning now. And it's been so exciting seeing people have that opportunity to pursue and explore their identity in a way that fits outside of our societal binary that we've put ourselves into.
Yes, so true. I know the name is a bit cliche, but I broke the words down, and that's why they're important to me, because better in that I feel so much better right now. People respond to me so much differently. I'm so much more better with myself and comfortable. And late, it's never too late. I mean, we're all transitioning. Life is one big giant transition when you think about it. And we're all at different points sometimes, but you have to start somewhere. And you can never think that, oh, it's too late for me to try something, because it's not. And the never is kind of, what if I'd have never done this? My life is so different now that it almost scares me to think, what would it be like if I had never done this? And I'm so fortunate to have super supportive partner and family and friends. But I think at some point in your life, you just think, I have to just go for it. I just have to be true to how I feel. And that's kind of the bottom line.
And I think that messaging is so important because it's not just for people who are going through a gender journey, but for anyone in life. Take those chances, try something new. I'm in the process of right now working on a quick little audio reel to try out a voice acting gig. Something I'm like, why should I even bother? My name's not going to be picked. It's like, well, if I don't try, I might never get out there. So like, what's the harm in doing it, right?
Yeah, and I think sometimes in many things people think, well, what's the monetary advantage, or what's, that there has to be some real end goal, but the end goal can just be because you enjoy doing it, that you want to show a positive representation, you want to show or try a different skill set that you haven't tried before. And I think as we get older, we have to keep doing those things. You have to keep engaging and have multi-generational friends and try different activities and keep your brain just engaged all the time, and it keeps you young, because at some point you look in the mirror and you're like, whoa, when did that happen? Because your brain doesn't match your face, and it's kind of scary. And I don't want to wreck it for younger people, but it just happens, and yeah.
What made you want to take on this foray into films? Like you said, this was your first film going out there. What inspired you? Why decide to tell your story in a film format?
It's great that you asked that, because I'm kind of new to Winnipeg, and I go to a lot of different workshops, and I've always been interested in film and photography, and I've always put myself in a secondary role. I was always the supporting person or helping, or and I thought, I went to this workshop, and it was through, I think, On-Screen Manitoba and Artoba. I was so inspired, and I thought, you know what, just start, just do something. You have lots of stories, you've had them in your head, You have this story going on now. Start with something small and just do it. And that was really my influence to do something. And I found the art community here, creatives, people in film, people in any media, they're so supportive here, and it's so refreshing because, you know, um, a lot of other places, I'll just say, can be quite cutthroat, and they think, oh, you're stepping on their territory. But here, I haven't found that at all. And I thought, you know what? I thought, try a minute. Just do something, do a 1 minute film and see what happens. And I didn't realize how hard that was going to be. But now I think, I'm going to really go for it. And I think my next one's going to be 2 minutes. I'm going to double it. I'm
Hell
going to double
yeah.
the time. Just going to keep going. I'm just going to keep going.
I think that's a thing a lot of people don't realize, that even in a short format, a film is difficult to make no matter what. The amount of time to think about it, like the editing, just getting everything set up for filming is so involved, especially the shorter as you get. I've had some conversations with like short filmmakers. Some of them are like, man, I would have much rather made a feature film, just because trying to get your story across in like a small amount of time can be so difficult, because you're like, what do I cut out? When you have this great script, you're like, how do I make this work?
Well, exactly. So what I did after I shot it and started editing, I thought, every image, even if it's only a second, has to be meaningful. So I like, if I went through every single, second of the film, I could tell you exactly why I made the choices I made, because I had to be very thoughtful about it, because you're telling a story in a very short amount of time, and so you can't waste anything. And I had a couple people look at it and give me some feedback, people I trust. But at the end of the day, you have to follow your heart, and you have to keep the things that are really important to you, and that's what I did in this film.
Okay. Did you approach every aspect? So like sound engineer, director, cinematographer, and editor?
Yeah, I did it all. So it was quite a learning curve. I taught myself DaVinci in like a couple of weeks. I purposely didn't put like a music track down, because I wanted people to listen in the very beginning and pay attention to what was going on, and kind of think, okay, what are we looking at here? But I have a couple of friends, who've been in the industry, and so I trusted them with, just taking a peek at it and getting their feedback. And so I just learned so much. There's things I definitely would be doing differently, but this is a fun part of it.
Well,
This is
exactly, that
yeah,
learning experience.
exactly, yeah.
For someone who's thinking about taking that dive and trying something for the first time, what are some of the things that you found most gratifying through this experience? And what are some challenges? Because you mentioned, doing something different next time.
Yeah, I think for me, I love learning. Like, I had a boss that told me one time, lifelong learning and lifelong fitness will always, keep you young. And I really believe that. So for me, the best part was the learning. I really connecting with people like that's like my religion. And I always, I just, it's just like social media is one thing, but man, I just want to sit down with you and have a coffee and find out how your day is going. It's more real to me, and that maybe that's my generation. But those connections and those contacts I made while making it was really positive. And then the down, not really a downside. It's just very scary when you're putting yourself out there. So for me, it's a very personal story, and so you're
Well,
very
you're making yourself
vulnerable.
vulnerable. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and no one likes doing that. But I think we have to make ourselves uncomfortable to grow. That's the only time you have to really stop and think. And if one thing COVID did, and aside from evening the playing field, is we all had a lot of time to sit and think about some things. And it's scary because you never know what kind of response you're going to get. But at this point, I just think live and let live. I'm telling my story. If you don't like it, that's fine. If you do, that's great too. But you have to do what's important to you and true to you.
What do you know about the Real Pride Film Festival? Have you gone attended it beforehand? Is this kind of your first time? I think it's exciting to hear people's experiences going to these different film festivals across Manitoba, because Real Pride, I just learned about it last year, had the opportunity to join the board this year, and it's been such an exciting experience, at least for myself, and I can't wait to see especially with the 40th anniversary coming up next year, where it's going to go.
Exactly. I moved to Winnipeg in 2018, and I went to Real Pride because I love film. I just I obviously support the LGBTQ community, and it was really great because it's so intimate. The setting is really so great, and I didn't really know anybody here, but I really enjoyed the films. And of course, COVID came, but then I started going to the Gimli Film Festival, and it was kind of funny because I was just there, kind of just watching, and I was walking down the street, and I started talking to this gentleman. He was so nice, and we sat down, and I found out he was someone involved with Real Pride, Ron Lambert, and we had the greatest conversation, and he's just such a nice person. And that was before I even thought of making a film. And but I thought, wow, there's so many opportunities here, and I think that's the thing in life. Like all these events, all these sequences, all these people you meet, they're building you and taking you to a place that you might not know for years, but then all of a sudden there it is. And so I feel really fortunate because I didn't know that the short competition was the longest running short competition in Canada. And that was really cool to find out. And, like any festival, there's so many volunteers, there's people that work so hard at it. And I just think, cheers to Winnipeg and to the whole, group that every year puts this together, because these things are not easy, and they're so fun.
Yeah.
They're just so fun to attend because you see perspectives from all over the world as well, which is really important.
Yeah, talking about that, films, we've got local films, your film, we've got Canadian films and international films, and it's so exciting. Why do you think it's important to set that stage to showcase queer stories from around the world?
I think more and more, when I was young, there wasn't that representation. You couldn't look to the media and see yourself reflected back, particularly as a trans man, or if you did, they always met some tragic end, And I think we're seeing more that we see the trans people as the hero, as now they're like, how great will it be to always have the trans person be the smartest person in the room, the most stylish, or, the trans guy gets the girl, not the straight guy. I just think that we're seeing different representations of ourselves, and in a positive way. And that's what's important, that it doesn't always have to be negative or tragic, that there's people doing incredible things. And now we see more of it. And I just want to add to that. And, and even from a mature transitionist perspective, that, you can live a long life, and that these things don't have to, there's never, like, again, there's never a late time to put yourself out there and show your representation from your own life.
Especially as we're hearing like scary rhetoric and stuff like coming from the United States, having this united community, and especially like allies coming to events like this, or someone who hears about it and be like, you know what, I might as well check it out. That representation gives people just an insight into what the real life is of someone within under the queer umbrella. Be like, oh, I didn't think about that. It's like, oh, that's not what I'm hearing. This is what the life is like. And it can be that opportunity to give people a chance to see a life that they might not otherwise have.
I think, a great movie documentary that was put on called Disclosure, you might have seen it. They talk about, 80% of Americans don't know anyone, who's gay or trans. And that's the thing. When we don't know anybody, we don't spend the time to get to know them. We're afraid of things we don't understand sometimes.
Yeah, it becomes this kind of like enigma.
Yeah, and unfortunately in the States, it's like, oh, something's different. We must get rid of it. We must kill it. We must whatever, which is very scary. And I think that's the problem, is most people just don't know enough of us to just realize we're just normal people living normal
lives. Yeah, it's like, oh my God,
yeah.
Trans people are just normal people? What?
Yeah, it's really ridiculous when you think about it, because, we have no agenda. We're just trying to live our lives, and hopefully it's like anything, the more representation there is, the more people understand it, I think. So, and positive representation, hopefully.
Exactly. And I've seen young kids who've had the opportunity to see diverse identities showcased, whether it's on the big film, big screen, or, the small screen with TV shows, exploring identities that haven't been traditionally showcased in media, and that opportunity to be like, oh, wait, that's me. That's my story. I can, like you're mentioning, I can be the hero of the story as well. I don't just have to be a side character or the queer-coded villain like in Disney
Exactly.
movies.
Well, that's the thing, it's so great in that my niece is a teacher, and she deals with the younger grades, and some of the stories she tells me of how accepting the kids are. Oh, it just does my heart good. It makes me so proud and happy when she'll tell me like some kid came out to some other kid and they're like, okay, and move on. I mean, it's not as big of a deal anymore, and which is just so great because when you're young, you're so vulnerable to people's opinions. Everything colors how you think about yourself at a certain age, and no matter what your parents say, it's what your friends think. And if people don't accept, if they just take you for who you are and that these things aren't a big deal anymore, I just think what a relief for the kids coming up. It's just such a great time to have images, have positive representation that they can see themselves in.
Exactly. Get to that place where kids like, oh, I'm trans, or oh, I'm gay, or like, oh, I'm straight, and everyone like goes, oh, cool, let's go play.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's kind of the things like she's telling me. I'm thinking, wow, this is like so awesome. Because, when I was young, I wouldn't say I got bullied, but it's funny, I'd get bullied for my interests. Back in the old days, you check out a book from the library, and you had to write your name, right? And so I check out these motorcycle books or whatever, and I'd have a female name on there. And the other guys would tease me for checking out this book. I thought, oh my God, how ridiculous is this? When I think about it later, to be bullied even for your interests in something else, and it's so great that that's definitely changing and that's not the case anymore. Hopefully.
Yeah, it's definitely both a scary and exciting time right now. It's like, I guess it gets a little confusingly emotional. You're like, wow, that's a great story. Ah, that's a scary story. But I mean, I feel things are trending, like people fighting for rights, people like wanting openness and acceptance. And yeah, I'm hoping that's what we continue to see.
Exactly. Yeah, me too. Let's think that, let's hope it keeps going. I'm very positive that it will.
Exactly.
I just feel like if I can, if I can tell a story that makes somebody feel better about themselves or just gets a good feeling from it, that's all that matters to me, really.
Yeah, putting a little bit of goodness and happiness in the world.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Hi, my name is Daphne Finlayson. I am the co-writer slash director of photography slash editor on Caller ID.
And my name's Logan Stephenson. I am the director and co-writer of Caller ID.
So why don't you walk me through the process a little bit about, coming together and creating this film?
Well, it was through the 48-hour film festival. So Daphne has definitely been putting in the work in the local Winnipeg filmmaking scene, and it's something that I've always really wanted to do. We both come from artistic backgrounds, and I'm kind of in the point in my life where I'm really wanting to make a change and flip over. So to actually making the films that I've kind of always dreamed of doing. So Daphne has done 48-hour Film Fest a couple of times now. And so she very, very gratefully invited me on board with this year's attempt. And yeah, it was over the course of 3 days. We met in the evening on the Friday, banged out the script after a little brainstorming session with a couple of other people at Daphne's house, wrote the script, and then we filmed the entire thing in a couple of hours the next day.
Wow.
Yeah, one of the best things for me about the 48-hour film festival is that it doesn't give you a second to second guess yourself. Like, you have to go with your first instinct. Okay, I don't know if this is the greatest idea in the world, but we don't have time to second guess ourselves or write a second draft. So we're going and we're doing it and working as fast as we can with like the time constraints and the secret ingredients. But we had a really lovely group of people working with us. So the whole day just went by like a dream.
An opportunity like that allows you, as you're mentioning, you can't second guess yourself. I think that's a great opportunity for people who might be scared or hesitant about taking a chance, because it's like, well, I got to get it done. Let's just do something.
Yeah, it like forces you to get out of that like indecision paralysis of like, I don't know what to write. I don't know what to do. And it's like one of my partner's like favorite adage about why something gets published or why something goes up is that it doesn't get published because it's ready. It get published because it's the deadline and it's the best version of it that it's going to be in time. And so it's great to kind of get out of our own heads and just make something. And not that we didn't care about the final product, but just to like know that this was going to be fun and be able to just approach it from, we're all going to have fun. And isn't that lovely?
How many stories are there of a creator who's been working on something for years and years and years and years, and then eventually they give up on it because they decided, well, it's not going anywhere now?
Or like you just keep picking at something and picking at something to the point where it's just like a desiccated husk of what it could have been if you had just let the first draft breathe a little bit instead of like continuing to work it to death.
Logan, I guess just what are your feelings through this process, and what sort of ideas were you kind of bouncing around to finally come down to the film that you created?
Well, the great thing about 48 Hours is that it gives you prompts. So I can't remember all of them right off the top of my head, but it gives you a couple, like there's a specific shot that you have to use. It gives you like a specific music style cue that you have to use. It gives you like a very, very vague kind of sense of something that has to happen in the plot. So we really kind of just ran off of that. Like we didn't really have any ideas going into it. I know that sometimes with 48 Hour, some people will have like an idea fully formed and then just kind of change it a little bit to accept those prompts. Our whole idea was to use the prompts as the absolute baseline. We didn't want to come in with anything that didn't get created within those 48 hours. So yeah, we just really took the prompts and just kind of, like the brainstorming itself also only took like, I would say like a couple of hours, not even. We really just sort of, yeah, I think the prompt was hidden in plain sight. So we just really kind of ran through as many ideas as we could possibly come up with. Also knowing that the film could only be like, what was it, Daphne, like 3.5 minutes or something?
Like under 3 minutes for sure.
Yeah.
I think we ended up with like 2.5.
And just sort of like, what is like something that can be effective, something that can have a decent punchline, something that can just really hit within those 2 minutes using that prompt.
Logan, you had mentioned this is kind of your first foray into film, correct? And then Daphne, it's just you've been involved in other 48-hour film festivals. Are you involved in film outside of that?
I am, yeah. This was my second time doing the 48. And then I also work in film as a script supervisor and production assistant.
What does that all entail?
Yeah, so I find that script supervisor is the one that everyone's like, what is that? That sounds important. And like it is, but like the main thing that a script supervisor does is that they focus on the continuity of a movie. So the best example is like that the Starbucks cup that made it into Game of Thrones. Like there's a lot of people who screwed up in order for that to have happened, but usually the script supervisor is the one that's like watching the frame like a hawk of, okay, was that there in the last shot? Was that there in the last shot? He was biting in that shot, so he needs to be chewing in this shot, and just keeping an eye on kind of the internal logic of the movie and like how long everything is taking, so we don't get like halfway into the shooting process and realize, oh, we're actually making Lord of the Rings and we thought we were making a 90-minute rom-com, and so we need to cut some stuff.
So Logan, now that you've completed this 48-hour film festival and you've had this opportunity to dip your toes into the film industry a little bit, how are you feeling? What are your thoughts? You kind of wanting to take it on again?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that was 100% the goal. Like the whole excitement of being invited on with Daphne is that like I am wanting to do this. I am wanting to work in the film industry. I am wanting to get involved in some way. I've wanted to make movies ever since I was a kid, and I've dabbled in a lot of sort of creative stuff throughout my life. Daphne and I actually met through doing theater in theater school, and we both write plays. But I've never really, it just seems like film is never something that I was really able to do. That's just sort of that self-doubt vortex that we all find ourselves in sometimes. But like I said earlier, I'm at a point in my life where I just don't want to dream about it anymore, and I just want to go for it. So I was so grateful and so excited to be invited onto this, especially because when we wrote the script, Daphne looked over to me and just said, like, all right, so what do you want to do? Do you want to act in this? Do you want to direct? And I was like, I guess I want to direct. She's like, cool. Next day it was like, all right, Logan, what are we doing?
Yeah, just like, thrown right out there.
I got tossed in the lake, and which is like, I was so excited by that because like, I feel like it was a really, really good experience, and it wasn't as scary as I thought it was going to be. And it wasn't as overwhelming or whatever that it was going to be. Like, I felt like I really actually took to it. So it absolutely, like, there was already a huge fire in me regarding wanting to make movies and wanting to tell stories. And this just gave me the realization that it is absolutely doable and it is feasible and realistic. I write a lot. Like there's a lot of scripts and everything that I really want to eventually get made in the future.
Yeah, so it's an exciting first step then.
Very, very much so. Like I said, it's just realizing that like, oh, it is realistic and it is doable. It's not just some like big far-fangled dream that only exists for like a few select people. Like anyone can pick up a camera and make a movie.
Yeah, I think that's the important part. Letting people know it's like, you can do this, you can try. Like maybe it's not the greatest thing the first time. Like no creative ever like does something for the first time, like that's perfect, that's my magnum opus right there. But it's like those opportunities, taking those chances, and especially when we're looking at queer films and queer representation, I think it's more important than ever to get those stories out there.
Absolutely agreed. There's that wonderful Ira Glass quote that I really, really like, where he's talking about how when you're a creative starting out, your taste is at this level, but your skill is at here just because they haven't lined up yet. So for the first few years of being a creative, your taste outmatches your skill. And so everything you do just doesn't feel right and it's not quite there yet. But you're eventually just climbing up until those two can meet. And that's when you really get going.
So let's dive a little bit. I mean, it's a 3-minute film, so we don't want to spoil it or anything because we want people to go see it on September 25th. But caller ID, I know one thing that stood out to me is like caller, like AR, what's going on here? So let's talk about the film. Why the title? What can people expect when they go see it?
When people go and see it, they can definitely expect, like I said, it's hard to talk about it without necessarily giving a ton away because, once again, 2 minutes. The prompt, I will repeat, is hidden in plain sight. So that's definitely something for the audience to watch out for. What I will say is that the short is, they can expect to see a young couple in a disagreement, and then figuring out the best solution for both of them.
Very exciting. I guess just Daphne, like caller ID placed with a ton of other really exciting films. How are both of you feeling about being showcased at the Real Pride International Film Festival?
I've been lucky enough to get screened in the shorts program for the last couple of years, and every time I do, I just feel so lucky. I get to be in such really cool company. Like the nice thing about showing up and that like I've never won any awards, but I also don't go into it expecting that. I just am like so honored to get to like be in a room with all of our peers and see like, okay, and there's my film and there's what everybody else is doing and we're all peers and that's awesome. Like last year I've gotten to see some incredibly amazing LGBTQ plus cinema, things that I would never dream of making in a million years in a way that excites me because it's just, I like seeing what everyone else is doing and I like lovingly getting to plagiarize their cool ideas for my work.
What about you, Logan?
Exact same. Like I've never really been in a position like this before. The short aired earlier this year at the Gimli Film Fest, which I unfortunately had to miss for a couple of reasons. Like I'm from Gimli. I wish I could have been there to see it. Yeah, I've never really gotten to, because whenever I did theater, I would always be like, I would be on stage a lot of the times. Even with some of the shows that I've written, I would act in them. So I would always be on the other end of the audience, kind of focused in being enmeshed in the world. So it's simultaneously an absolutely thrilling and an absolutely terrifying concept of being in the audience, kind of sharing that with everyone else, because that's definitely something I'm not really used to yet. But kind of building on just what Daphne said, like it's really, really exciting to be in a room full of peers, especially in the LGBTQ plus community, because that's like I haven't really shared anything with that community. Like being queer myself, I'm not necessarily like super involved in the community as much as I could be. And so I feel like this is really kind of a great gateway for me to sort of say like, hey, here I am. Hi.
I mean, arts, being creative, like getting out there, it's always a great opportunity to connect with, like you're mentioning, like-minded individuals. And in this case, engaging with a community like, talking with the board members and Ray, who's been in there for such a long time, of how the community has changed and grown over the decades. And it's something he says has been incredibly exciting, how it's shifted and evolved.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful thing that we're now in a place with queer representation where we have an entire film festival full of these films, and there might have even been some that were not chosen. That's how many of them there are, and the caliber of them that are being produced.
It's absolutely exciting. I guess just how are you feeling? Your films are being showcased. Are you excited for the rest of the Real Pride Film Festival? Any movies or things that are kind of catching your eye?
Ooh, that is a good question. Now I need to like go figure out what their lineup is because I'm shamefully underprepared.
Ones that I think are really great. Thruple is just a really fun comedic film. I really enjoyed it when I got to preview it. I can't remember it, but there is a horror themed one made in Egypt, and like the cinematography was great. I think like all of it, and like it's just like all of the films like represented from across the world, exploring a ton of different themes, but with that uniting connection of we are family.
I love that. No, I feel like there's so much great queer cinema coming from around the world right now. Like I saw, and like really weird stuff too. Like I feel like it's really, really important to have like genuine, heartfelt queer stories. But I'd be lying if I said that I don't really, really love like the imaginative, freaky, like completely psychedelic, out of nowhere, weird stuff. Like I at Cinematheque a while ago, I saw She Is Conan, which I think is French, and that did that thing to me that I love when movies do. Where as I was watching, I'm like, oh my God, I need to like go home and like write something. I need to like make something right now.
Yeah, my friend showed me a trailer for a film a little while ago. It's called The People's Joker, and it's such. Oh, have you seen the trailer?
I haven't seen the movie, but I've seen the trailer. Yeah, I love the idea of it.
It is so wild, so crazy. For anyone listening, go check it out, like on YouTube. Like it is the most bizarre. I watched it like 3 times because the first time I'm like, this is wild. What even is this? And the second time I was like, okay, I'm getting it. And then the third time is like, okay, I'm sold. I love this. Everything about this. It's just everything for me right now.
Well, and that's one where I really, really feel like that also kind of fits into that ethos of like anyone can make a movie. It doesn't matter. Like you don't need a budget. You don't need like a cast of like stars or anything like that. Like you and your friends and a green screen can go make something and it can still like absolutely blow people's minds.
Yes. Awesome. So Logan, Daphne, thank you so much for taking this time to talk about your film, Caller ID. If people are interested in, finding out more about your work or, following you so they can see some of the future endeavors, where can they go?
My cute little production company that helped make the film is called Hypothetical Projects. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Hypothetical Projects. We also have a website, hypotheticalprojects.com.
And then for me, I'm kind of woefully not online a lot at the moment. As my kind of portfolio grows and everything, I would like to be a little bit more out there. Right now, the only place that I have is on Instagram. I have a page which is at boo.radical. That's where I post just a lot of like my cartoons and comics and stuff like that I've been doing over the years. But hopefully I'll be getting a little bit more visual work up there soon.
Make sure you check out the Real Pride International Film Festival running until September 28th. I'm Ryan Funk. This was You Talk, and have yourself a good one.